I was sitting at our kitchen table on a Thursday night, halfway through a slice of leftover pizza from Tony's downtown, when my wife looked up from her phone and said something that would change the entire trajectory of our marriage. We'd been together for 6 years, married for 4, and I thought I understood how our life worked. Turns out, I didn't understand anything. "You know," she said casually, not even looking at me, "my family will always come first in every decision. Your second priority, maybe third." I put down my pizza and just stared at her. The way she said it, so matter-of-fact, like she was commenting on the weather or telling me we needed milk, that's what got me. No hesitation, no apology, just a statement. "Good to know where I stand," I said. She shrugged, still typing on her phone. "I'm just being honest. Blood is thicker than water, and they were here before you." That was it. No follow-up discussion, no attempt to soften what she'd just said. She went right back to texting her sister Joy about some family drama that I'd probably be expected to help solve later. I finished eating in silence, watching her thumbs move across the screen, completely unaware that she'd just handed me a blueprint for everything that came next. Later that night, while she slept, I sat at my laptop and opened a new browser window. I'd been contributing most of our household income for years. I work as a project coordinator, nothing fancy but stable, and I'd always assumed we were building something together. Joint savings, shared goals, partnership. But if I was second priority, maybe third, then I needed to start thinking about my own priorities. I started with Grace Community Bank's website. New checking account, new savings account, both in my name only. I used my work address for the statements. No need to complicate things with mails showing up at the house. Then I pulled up a mortgage pre-approval calculator and started running numbers. I made decent money. Not rich, but enough. Enough to take care of myself at least. By 2 a.m, I had appointments scheduled with 2 different banks and a tentative meeting with a mortgage broker for that weekend. I also bookmarked several real estate websites and started browsing properties in my price range. The sandbox environment was peaceful at that hour. Just me, my laptop, and the quiet realization that I'd been funding someone else's family emergency fund while thinking we were building a future together. The next morning, she rushed around getting ready for work, complaining about how her parents needed help with their property taxes again. She grabbed her coffee, kissed me on the cheek like nothing had changed, and headed out the door. "I'll probably be late tonight," she called over her shoulder. "Meeting Joy and Eli to talk about Dad's situation." "Sure thing," I replied, already mentally drafting my lunch break errands. By Friday afternoon, I had both new accounts open and my first deposits made. Direct deposit would take a week to switch over, but I moved half of what was in our joint savings as a starting point. She never checked the statements anyway, too busy managing everyone else's crisis to notice our own account shrinking. Saturday morning, I told her I was meeting some guys from work to watch the game. Instead, I spent 3 hours with Richard Faulkner, a mortgage broker who walked me through my options with surprising clarity. "Most people think they need perfect credit and a huge down payment," he said, reviewing my paperwork. "But you've got steady income, decent savings, and no major debt. You could close on something within 60 days if you wanted." That evening, she was on the phone with her mother for 2 hours, discussing her brother Eli's failed restaurant venture and how they might need to help with his lease payments. I sat on the couch researching investment strategies and retirement planning, half listening to her coordinate another family bailout. "Are you even listening?" she asked, covering the phone. "Every word," I lied smoothly. "Sounds like Eli's in a tough spot." She nodded and went back to her conversation, assuming I'd be ready to write checks when the family meeting concluded. She had no idea I was calculating exactly how much independence cost. Sunday, I drove through 3 different neighborhoods, getting a feel for what my money could buy. I wasn't looking for anything fancy, just something solid that would be mine. A place where I wouldn't have to worry about in-laws dropping by unannounced or family meetings in my living room about who needed money this month. By Sunday night, I had a favorite. A small 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. Decent yard, good bones, asking price exactly what I could afford. The location was perfect. Close enough to work, far enough from drama. She spent Sunday on the phone with various family members, coordinating some kind of intervention strategy for Eli's financial problems. I heard her mention my name twice, both times in the context of, "He'll understand," and "We can figure something out." That night, as we got ready for bed, she finally looked up from her phone long enough to notice me. "You've been quiet this weekend. Everything okay?" "Just thinking," I said, brushing my teeth. "About what?" I spit out the toothpaste and looked at her in the bathroom mirror. "Priorities." She laughed. "Don't overthink it. Family stuff is complicated, but it always works out." "I'm sure it does," I replied, turning off the light. As I lay there listening to her breathing, I realized she was absolutely right about one thing. Family stuff was complicated. But she'd made her choice about who was family, and I'd made mine about who comes first in my life. Monday morning brought another appointment, this time with a financial advisor named Daniel Blackburn. He was a straight shooter who didn't try to oversell me on complex investment packages I couldn't afford. "You want to build wealth independently," he said, looking over my numbers. "Smart move. Diversification isn't just about stocks and bonds. It's about life strategy, too." He recommended a simple 3-part approach. Max out my 401k contributions, open a Roth IRA, and keep building my emergency fund. Nothing fancy, but solid fundamentals that would compound over time. "The key is consistency," he explained. "Small amounts invested regularly beat large amounts invested sporadically. You're playing the long game now." By Tuesday, I'd adjusted my payroll deductions and opened the IRA. My take-home pay dropped slightly, but I was building something that belonged entirely to me. No joint ownership, no family meetings required to access my own money. Wednesday brought the first real test of my new approach. She came home frustrated, tossing her purse on the counter harder than necessary. "Eli's landlord is threatening eviction. He needs $3,000 by Friday or he's out." I looked up from the dinner I was preparing. "That's rough. What's his plan?" She stared at me like I'd asked what color the sky was. "We need to help him, obviously." "We?" "Yes, we. He's family." She pulled out her phone and started typing. "I already told Joy we'd cover it. She's coordinating with Mom and Dad to see how much they can contribute." I set down the spatula and turned to face her. "When did we discuss this?" "We don't need to discuss helping family," she snapped. "It's what people do." "Some people," I corrected. "But those decisions involve our money, which means they involve both of us." She looked genuinely confused, like I was speaking a foreign language. "Since when do you have a problem helping my family?" "Since you made it clear where I rank in your priorities." That stopped her cold. For a moment, she seemed to remember our conversation from Thursday night. But instead of addressing it, she did what she always did. She deflected. "This isn't about priorities. This is about doing the right thing." "According to who?" "According to basic human decency." She was getting loud now, which meant she thought volume would win the argument. "My brother needs help, and we can provide it." I went back to stirring the pasta sauce. I can't provide it. What do you mean you can't? I mean exactly that. I don't have $3,000 available for your brother's rent. This was technically true. My emergency fund was earmarked for emergencies, and Eli's poor business planning didn't qualify. My new investment accounts were off limits entirely. That's ridiculous, she said. We have money in savings. You have money in savings. I've been reorganizing my finances. The confusion on her face was almost comical. She pulled out her phone and opened our banking app, probably to show me our joint account balance. When she saw the reduced amount, her expression shifted from confusion to something closer to panic. Where did the money go? Into my personal accounts. Your personal accounts? She said it like I'd told her I'd spent it on drugs. Since when do you have personal accounts? Since I decided to prioritize myself in my own life. She stared at me for a long moment, processing this information. I could see her trying to figure out if I was bluffing, having some kind of crisis, or genuinely serious. You can't be serious right now. Eli needs help. Eli needs to learn financial responsibility. But that's between him and whoever decides to enable his next failure. Enable? Her voice cracked on the word. This is my brother we're talking about. I know exactly who we're talking about. The same brother who needed help with his security deposit 6 months ago, and his car payment before that, and his credit card debt before that. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it because she knew I was right. This is different, she said finally. It's always different. But somehow, it always involves our money. My family has always been there for us. Your family has always been there for you. There's a difference. Thursday morning, she tried a different approach. Instead of demanding, she attempted reasoning. Look, I know you're upset about what I said last week. Maybe I could have phrased it better. The phrasing wasn't the problem. The sentiment was. She sat down across from me at the breakfast table. Family is important to me. That doesn't mean you're not important too. It means exactly that, actually. You said it yourself. Second priority, maybe third. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? She struggled for an answer, which told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't misspoken. She'd been honest for once, and now she was trying to backtrack because she needed something. Can we table this discussion and focus on Eli's situation? She asked. There's nothing to table. You've been clear about your priorities, and I've adjusted mine accordingly. What does that mean? It means I'm not funding your family's emergencies anymore. Friday morning brought panic. Eli's deadline was approaching, and the family funding plan had fallen short. Her parents could contribute $500. Joy could manage $300. That left $2,200 unaccounted for. Please, she said, standing in our bedroom doorway while I got dressed for work. I'll pay you back. With what money? I'll pick up extra shifts. I'll figure it out. You'll figure it out the same way Eli figured out his business plan. She flinched at that but pressed on. This is important to me. I understand that, but your importance doesn't override my financial security. Since when do you worry about financial security? Since I realized I might need to take care of myself someday. That afternoon, I put an offer on the house I'd been watching. Full asking price, quick closing, cash down payment from my newly independent savings account. The seller accepted immediately. I'd be a homeowner in 30 days, and it would belong entirely to me. The closing paperwork sat on my desk at work like a small victory. 30 days until I owned something that existed completely outside her family's sphere of influence. No joint mortgage, no shared equity, no committee votes required to make decisions about my own property. Eli ended up borrowing money from a payday loan place, which solved his immediate crisis and created a bigger long-term problem. But that wasn't my concern anymore. She spent the weekend alternating between silent treatment and passive-aggressive comments about my selfishness. I spent it researching home security systems and interviewing contractors for basic updates the house would need. Monday brought a call from the mortgage broker with good news. Your credit score actually improved since our last meeting. The bank is offering you a rate that's half a point better than we discussed. How much does that save me? About $8,000 over the life of the loan. Your debt-to-income ratio looks fantastic now that you've eliminated the joint account obligations. Interesting how removing myself from her family's financial emergencies improved my credit worthiness. Tuesday, I opened another investment account focused on aggressive growth. I was 42 years old, which gave me plenty of time for market fluctuations to even out. Daniel had recommended putting 20% of my savings into higher-risk investments for better long-term returns. You're building wealth systematically, he said during our follow-up meeting. Most people your age are still figuring out budgets. You're already thinking like a millionaire. The comment stuck with me, not because I had delusions of grandeur, but because it highlighted how much mental energy I'd wasted on other people's financial problems instead of building my own security. Wednesday evening, she tried a new strategy. Instead of arguing, she attempted to include me in the family planning sessions. Joy thinks we should have a family meeting to discuss everyone's financial situation. Get everything out in the open so we can help each other better. I looked up from the home inspection report I was reviewing. That sounds like a great idea for your family. You're part of this family. According to your priority list, I'm an associate member at best. Stop throwing that in my face. I said I was sorry. Actually, you said you could have phrased it better. That's not an apology. It's a PR adjustment. She sat down on the couch next to me, which was unusual. Normally, she stayed on the other side of the room when we had these conversations. What do you want from me? She asked. Nothing. That's not an answer. It's the only answer. I don't want anything from you anymore. I'm handling my own life now. That's ridiculous. We're married. We share a lease and a last name. Everything else is apparently negotiable based on your family's needs. Thursday brought the home inspection results. Minor issues. Nothing that would derail the closing. The inspector recommended updating the electrical panel and adding insulation to the attic, but structurally the house was solid. I scheduled both repairs to be completed before I took possession. The electrical work would run $1,500. The insulation, another $800. Money well spent for peace of mind. You've been busy lately, she observed over dinner. Lots of phone calls, lots of appointments. New project at work, something like that. She waited for me to elaborate, but I was done offering information she'd use against me later. If she wanted to know what I was doing, she could ask directly. Are you going to tell me what's going on? You'll find out when it matters. Friday brought an unexpected development. Her sister Joy called me directly, which had never happened before. I think there's been a misunderstanding about the family situation, she said. I don't think there's been any misunderstanding at all. She says you're refusing to help with family emergencies. That's accurate. Joy paused, probably expecting me to explain or justify my position. When I didn't, she tried a different approach. We've always considered you family. That's nice of you. But your sister made it clear that I'm optional family. Optional members don't have mandatory obligations. She's just stressed about everything that's happening. Everyone's stressed about something. That doesn't create financial obligations for me. But you have the means to help. There it was. The assumption that my money was community property for her family's problems. I have the means to take care of myself. That's where my responsibility ends. That seems pretty selfish. It seems practical. Which one of you is planning to take care of me when I need help? She couldn't answer that question because we both knew the truth. If I lost my job tomorrow, her family would express sympathy and expect me to figure it out on my own. But when they had problems, my bank account was the first solution they considered. Monday morning, I met with a lawyer to discuss asset protection strategies. Not because I was planning divorce, but because I wanted to understand my options if family obligations became legal obligations. Separate property acquired before marriage remains separate, he explained. Separate property acquired during marriage with separate funds also remains separate. The key is maintaining clear documentation. What about commingling? Avoid it entirely. Keep your finances completely segregated. If your spouse contributes to mortgage payments on your separate property, she could claim partial ownership. Good to know. I made a mental note to pay all property-related expenses from my accounts exclusively. That evening, she was waiting for me with printed bank statements spread across the kitchen table. We need to talk. The bank statements were highlighted in yellow marker where money had moved from our joint account to my personal accounts. She'd clearly spent hours going through everything, trying to figure out exactly how much I'd repositioned. $12,000, she said, pointing to her calculations. You moved $12,000 without discussing it with me. I sat down across from her and looked at her math. Your numbers are accurate. That's it? That's all you have to say? What else would you like me to say? An explanation would be nice. Maybe an apology for hiding this from me. I wasn't hiding anything. I was managing my finances. There's a difference. She shuffled through the papers, looking for something that would give her leverage in this conversation. Half of this money came from my paychecks, too. Half of the money that went into our joint account came from your paychecks. The money I moved came from my contributions to that account. That's not how marriage works. According to who? According to common sense. We pool our resources and make decisions together. You pool our resources and make decisions for your family. I've decided to opt out of that arrangement. The conversation was interrupted by her phone ringing. She glanced at the caller ID and her face went pale. It's Mom. She answered on the third ring, and I could hear the panic in her mother's voice even from across the table. Something about foreclosure notices and bank deadlines and needing to find money immediately. Slow down, Mom. Start from the beginning. Her mother explained that they'd received a final notice, 60 days to bring their mortgage current or face foreclosure. They owed 8 months of back payments plus penalties and fees. Total amount, $24,000. How did it get this bad? My wife asked. Her mother launched into a story about medical bills and reduced Social Security payments and helping Eli with his previous emergencies. The same cycle that had been draining their finances for years just accelerated. We tried to refinance, but our credit is too damaged now. The bank won't work with us anymore. My wife looked across the table at me while her mother continued talking. I could see her mental calculations, adding up family resources and coming up short. Let me call you back, Mom. I need to discuss this with everyone. She hung up and stared at the bank statements between us. You heard all that. I did. My parents are going to lose their house. That's unfortunate. She waited for me to offer solutions, suggestions. anything that indicated I was planning to help. When I remained quiet, she became more direct. We need to help them. Oh, you need to help them. I need to protect my own financial future. This is different than Eli's situation. This is their home. It's the same pattern with higher stakes. Poor financial decisions leading to emergencies that become everyone else's responsibility. These are my parents. I understand who they are. But understanding relationships doesn't create financial obligations. She stood up and started pacing, which meant she was shifting into problem-solving mode. If we combine everything we have in savings, plus what Joy and Eli can contribute, plus maybe a personal loan, you can do whatever math makes you feel better. But my money isn't part of your equation. How can you be so cold about this? I'm not cold. I'm consistent. You establish that your family comes first in every decision. This is you making decisions about your family. But they'll lose everything. That's a consequence of their choices. Adults face consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from the moving company confirming Saturday's appointment. I'd hired them to move my personal belongings to the new house once closing was complete. She saw me check my phone and her expression shifted from desperation to suspicion. What was that? Nothing important. Show me. No. Show me the text. I don't take orders from you. She reached for my phone, but I pulled it away. What are you hiding? I'm not hiding anything. I'm maintaining boundaries. Boundaries? She said it like I'd spoken a foreign language. We're married. Married to someone who's made it clear that I'm not a priority. Married people who aren't priorities don't get unlimited access to each other's business. Thursday brought 3 more phone calls from her family. Eli called to suggest a family meeting to discuss pooling resources for their parents. Joy called to ask if we could co-sign a loan since our credit was better than their parents. Her father called directly, which he'd never done before, to ask if I could temporarily lend the money against the equity in our rental house. We don't own our rental house, I told him. We rent it. But you have good credit. You could get a loan. I could, but I won't. This is my home we're talking about. I understand that, but your home isn't my responsibility. Family helps family. Your family helps your family. I help myself. Friday afternoon, she came home early from work, which was unusual. She looked like she'd been crying, which was even more unusual. I talked to a lawyer today. About what? About our assets. About what I'm entitled to if we separate. There it was. The threat I'd been expecting since this all started. What did the lawyer tell you? That anything acquired during marriage is community property, including your new bank accounts. I nodded. Did the lawyer explain the exceptions to that rule? What exceptions? Separate property acquired with separate funds remains separate as long as you can document the source of the funds and maintain clear separation. Her face went through several expressions as she processed this information. You've been planning this for months. I've been protecting myself for months. There's a difference. You bastard. I'm the bastard. You told me exactly where I stood in your priorities. I adjusted my behavior accordingly. That's called adapting. Saturday morning brought the call I'd been expecting. Joy, in tears, explaining that they'd run out of options for their parents. The foreclosure was proceeding, and they needed a miracle. We're family, she sobbed into the phone. Family doesn't let family become homeless. Your family doesn't let family become homeless, I corrected. My family is me, and I'm taking excellent care of myself. How can you live with yourself? very comfortably, in my new house that I'm moving into this weekend. The silence on the other end told me she was finally understanding the full scope of my independent strategy. You bought a house? I did. Closing was yesterday. Without telling anyone. I told the people who needed to know. The bank, the real estate agent, the insurance company, everyone who mattered to the transaction. What about your wife? What about her? She doesn't prioritize me, so I don't consult her. Fair is fair. That evening, the moving truck loaded my belongings while she sat on the front porch, watching everything I owned disappear into boxes. She hadn't said a word since the movers arrived. As they loaded the last box, she finally spoke. Is this how it ends? This is how it begins. For me, anyway. I never meant for things to go this far. You meant exactly what you said. Your family comes first, always. I'm just making sure my family comes first, too. I'm your family. You're my wife. My family is me. Sunday morning in my new house felt different than I'd expected. Quiet, but not empty. Peaceful, but not lonely. I made coffee in my kitchen, read the news on my couch, and planned my day without consulting anyone or worrying about family emergencies. Around 10, my phone started ringing. Her name on the caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. The second call came 20 minutes later, then a third. By noon, I had 6 missed calls and a string of increasingly desperate text messages. We need to talk. This is important. Answer your phone. Don't ignore me. My parents need an answer today. Please. That last word told me everything about her mental state. She'd moved past anger into desperation, which meant the family meeting had gone poorly. I texted back, I'm available to talk at 2 p.m. if you want to come by. Her response was immediate. Come by where? My house, my new house. Send me the address. At exactly 2 o'clock, her car pulled into my driveway. She sat there for a few minutes, probably processing the reality that I'd bought an entire house without mentioning it to her. When she finally got out, her movements were stiff, like she was forcing herself through each step. I opened the door before she could knock. Nice place, she said, looking around the living room. Thanks. When did you buy it? Closed on Friday, moved in yesterday. How long have you been planning this? Since the night you explained my ranking in your priority system. She walked through the main floor, taking inventory. You furnished it too. I bought what I needed. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. How much did this cost? Why do you want to know? Because we're still married, and I'm trying to understand what you've done with our money. Your money is still in your accounts. My money bought this house. She stopped in the kitchen doorway. Our money bought this house? No. Money from my salary, deposited into my personal accounts after I separated my finances from yours, bought this house. There's a paper trail documenting every transaction. We'll see what a judge says about that. We can find out any time you want. But right now, you said this was important. What do you need? She pulled out her phone and showed me a document. Foreclosure notice. Her parents had until Wednesday to bring the mortgage current. That's 3 days, I said. We found a solution, but we need your help to make it work. I sat down at my kitchen table. Explain your solution. Joy's husband can get approved for a loan if he has a co-signer with good credit and sufficient income. The monthly payments would be manageable if we all contributed proportionally. Define proportionally. Based on income and ability to pay. You make more than anyone else, so your share would be larger. How much larger? She hesitated, which meant the number was ridiculous. 800 a month. 800 a month to pay your parents' mortgage. To save their home. For how long? Until they get back on their feet financially. When has anyone in your family ever gotten back on their feet financially? She ignored the question. Will you do it? No. Just like that? No consideration, no discussion? What's to discuss? You want me to commit to paying $800 a month indefinitely to solve a problem your family created. It's not indefinite. Once Dad's Social Security situation gets resolved and Mom goes back to work. Your mother is 67 years old. She's not going back to work. She might. She won't. And your father's Social Security situation is resolved. He's getting exactly what he's entitled to based on his work history. The payments aren't enough to cover their expenses. Then their expenses need to change. You're talking about my parents like they're strangers. I'm talking about them like adults who need to live within their means. She pulled out a chair and sat across from me. Please, I know things have been tense between us, but this is bigger than our problems. This is exactly our problems. Your family needs money, so you expect me to provide it. That's the pattern that created our problems in the first place. If you help with this, I'll make changes. We can go to counseling, work on our communication. What changes? I'll be more considerate of your feelings when family situations come up. You'll be more considerate of my feelings, but your family will still come first in every decision. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. You want me to fund your family's lifestyle, and in exchange, you'll be nicer about asking. That's not fair. Fair would be your family taking responsibility for their own financial decisions. Fair would be Eli getting a job that covers his expenses. Fair would be your parents downsizing to something they can afford. They've lived in that house for 30 years. And they've had 30 years to build equity and financial stability. Instead, they've spent 30 years bailing out their children and living beyond their means. She was crying now, which was a tactic she'd used before when logic wasn't working. I can't watch them lose their home. You don't have to watch. You can participate. Get a second job. Liquidate your retirement account. Sell your car and buy something cheaper. There are lots of ways to help that don't involve my money. Those suggestions are ridiculous. They're exactly what you're asking me to do. Sacrifice my financial security for your family's poor planning. You have more resources than I do. Because I've made different choices. I don't have credit card debt. I don't have car payments. I don't have student loans. I've been careful with money while your family has been careless. So you're punishing them for not being perfect. I'm protecting myself from the consequences of their imperfection. She wiped her eyes and tried a different approach. What if I paid you back? With what money? You can barely cover your share of the rent on our old place. I'll figure something out. The same way Eli figured out his business plan. Stop comparing me to my brother. I'm comparing your family's approach to money. It's all the same approach. Spend first, worry about consequences later, expect other people to solve the problems. This is their home. It's a house they can't afford. Home is wherever you can manage your expenses responsibly. She stood up abruptly. I can't believe you're this selfish. I can't believe you think self-preservation is selfish. They're family. Your family, not mine. You married into this family. I married you. Everything else was optional, and you've made it clear that I'm optional too. I never said you were optional. You said I was second priority, maybe third. Optional family, optional obligations, optional consideration. She walked to the window and stared at my backyard. What do you want from me? Nothing. Ugh, there has to be something, some way to fix this. There's no fixing this. You want me to be an ATM for your family's emergencies. I want to be financially independent and emotionally secure. Those two things are incompatible. So that's it. You're just done. I'm just started. For the first time in years, I'm putting my own interests first. It feels pretty good. And my parents? Your parents need to accept that actions have consequences. 30 years of poor financial decisions led to this moment. They can figure out how to move forward, just like everyone else who can't afford their mortgage. You're heartless. I'm honest. Your family isn't my responsibility. And your emergencies aren't my obligation. What about our marriage? What about it? You've made your priorities clear. I've made mine clear. We both know where we stand. She walked toward the front door, then stopped. This isn't over. For me, it is. We're still married. That can be changed anytime you want. She left without saying goodbye, and I watched from my kitchen window as she sat in her car for 10 minutes before driving away. Wednesday came and went. I didn't hear from any of them. 3 months later, I was settling into a routine I actually enjoyed. Morning coffee on my back porch, evening workouts in my garage gym. Weekends spent on projects I chose instead of family obligations I inherited. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday. She'd filed citing irreconcilable differences and was seeking half of all marital assets. Her lawyer had clearly done their homework, requesting detailed financial statements and documentation of all accounts. My lawyer, Stephen Clay, reviewed her demands with professional detachment. She's asking for half the house value, half your retirement accounts, and spousal support. What's she likely to get? Depends on what you can prove about separate property. Your documentation is excellent. The house purchase, the separate accounts, the clear paper trail. She'll get half of what was legitimately marital property, but your strategic separation protected most of your assets. The settlement conference lasted 4 hours. She sat across from me looking exhausted, which made sense given what I'd heard through mutual acquaintances. Her parents had lost the house and moved into a cramped apartment. Eli had filed bankruptcy. Joy's marriage was strained from the financial pressure of supporting everyone. Your client has been systematically hiding assets, her attorney argued. My client has been systematically protecting assets, Stephen replied. There's a difference. In the end, she received half of the joint savings we'd maintained before my separation strategy, half my 401k balance from our marriage date, and nothing else. No spousal support since she worked full-time. No claim to my house since it was purchased with separate funds. No access to my new investment accounts. This isn't fair, she said as we signed the papers. Fair is subjective, I replied. Legal is objective. 6 months after the divorce was final, I ran into Joy at a hardware store. She looked genuinely surprised to see me. How are you doing? She asked. Very well. You managing? It's been a tough year. I imagine it has. She hesitated, then asked the question I could see in her eyes. Do you ever regret how things ended? Never. Do you ever regret how things started? What do you mean? The assumption that my money was available for your family's problems. The expectation that I'd fund solutions for decisions I didn't make. We thought you cared about family. I do care about family. I care about my family enough to protect myself from other people's poor planning. That seems lonely. It seems peaceful. A year later, I was promoted to senior project coordinator with a substantial salary increase. The first person I told was Daniel Blackburn, my financial advisor, who immediately started calculating accelerated investment strategies. "At this rate, you'll be financially independent by 55, he said. "What does that look like?" "Enough passive income to live comfortably without working. Complete freedom to make choices based on what you want instead of what you need." Sounds perfect? I bought a truck that weekend. Not because I needed one, but because I wanted one. Paid cash. No financing, no monthly payments. It felt symbolic somehow. 2 years later, she remarried. Someone from her office who seemed pleasant enough when I met him at our final court appearance. I hoped he understood what he was signing up for, but that wasn't my concern anymore. Her new husband would learn the same lesson I'd learned. Her family would always come first. His choice was the same choice I'd faced: enable the pattern or protect himself from it. I chose protection, and I'd never been happier. Some people call it selfish. I call it smart. When someone shows you their priorities, believe them. When someone shows you where you rank, adjust accordingly. I'd built a life where I came first in my own decisions. It was exactly what I'd always wanted, and exactly what she taught me I needed. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.